We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Good evening, folks. Listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper.
The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Time, weather, and highways.
Veteran of 3 foreign wars, entrepreneur and warrior poet, Tony Arterburn takes on the issues facing our country, civilization, and planet. This is the Arterburn radio transmission.
All right, folks, the terrible ifs accumulate. It's a reference to Winston Churchill about the events leading up to more terrible things in war. Watching the headlines, folks, I'm reminded, it's almost like it's deja vu all over again, except this time we weren't treated to all of that sophisticated propaganda that we used to get. And now it's just all the time we're being lied to, but you're not trying to be seduced anymore into believing it. It was forced upon you at this point. So I'm going to get into a little bit of coverage of the war and the economic consequences of that. And then towards the end of the show today, we're going to do a little bit of parapolitics, some news on Bohemian Grove, some news on the history of bioweapons. I'm going to cover a little bit of that today. We will do the traditional finance stuff and look at that because the economic consequences of this disastrous series of decisions is going to be catastrophic, folks. Catastrophic fallout from the stupidity of this, the arrogance, the hubris, the evil behind an unjust, unnecessary, unconstitutional, unnecessary war. And I will cover that. This is the Arterburn radio transmission. I am your host, Tony Arterburn. I'm broadcasting in defiance of globalist goblins, the neocons, the New World Order, right here from deep within the heart of Texas, along with my co-pilot and co-host, Beans the Brave, who's just off camera. We were traveling yesterday, got in yesterday afternoon from Branson, and I just had time to put my stuff away, jump on the David Knight show this morning. Had a great talk with David. We were, just kind of reminiscing over the fact that we talked about all of this, and so much of this is just predictable, and it's so sad that it's predictable. The only lesson that we learn from history is that we do not learn from history, which is so sad, isn't it? Hell is the absence of reason. If you had any reason, those who had power, if you could look around and say, well, there's a lot of opportunity here. We've got a lot of advances in tech and other things, and we can send information instantaneously. There's a vast amount of knowledge. We have AI. What's the first thing let's have a war for no reason. Let's just do that. Let's have the most powerful military that's ever existed on the face of the planet. And let's misuse that on behalf of a foreign nation. Let's be co-opted by a foreign nation and use the might and strength and all of the peace dividend and all of the equity that's been given to us, handed over by our forefathers and our ancestors who just gave us this. And they said, here, use this responsibly. And we're like, oh, yeah, we're going to do that. Let's have some wars in the Middle East. You ever really thought about that? I mean, think about all those cold warriors. I remember I was listening to David today, and he was talking about how they were, some people said, well, you can see, we can have a missile go through the window of the Kremlin, or whatever. Like we can target with these smart bombs and the technology. I remember being in like 1988, I was like 8 years old. My grandfather was the vice president of Texas Instruments in the weapons division. And he had like all of these, like he would pull out like these weapons systems and stuff that he would show him. This is like, he was classified, he was showing me stuff that, all these stuff that they were working on years and years before any of it would ever be public, especially stuff with night vision and other things. And I remember he died right before I went off to Iraq in 2003. And I drove all the way from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He almost made it to 70, but he was part of the hydrogen bomb experiment. So he'd been exposed to all this nuclear radiation and other stuff when he in the 50s. And a lot of people that say the nukes aren't real. Yeah, it killed my grandfather. He didn't have a long life. He had to have his leg amputated at the hip because of the bone cancer. Like he was the last surviving member, and this was acknowledged by the government, by the way, of the Marines he commanded. But he would show me all this stuff, and I remember when they buried him when he passed away in the beginning of 2003, and I was 23, and I thought, wow, we're burying all these old cold warriors and people that gave us a huge peace dividend, and we just squandered it. The next generation of leaders, and especially the Luciferian neocons, just an evil group of people. I saw that somebody was running like a highlight reel of the new merch that Tucker Carlson's putting out on his website. And I mean, I'm not a huge Tucker fan for the most part, but I like what he's talking about now. And one of his merch items is neocons are gay for Israel. That's the mug or the hat. I got to get one of those. Certainly they are evil for Israel as well. And it's just sad to watch all this. I mean, the headlines on Drudge, and well, not that I care about Drudge so much, but we are looking at a total meltdown of U.S. geopolitical foreign policy strategy and standing. It is a massive fallout, folks. And so let's jump right into this. I'm going to cover as much as I can today. Did I mention it's the 12th of March, 2026? Let's get into two different stories on the Strait of Hormuz. And this is Kitco. A lot of stuff happening in the metals markets because of oil, folks. And I mentioned to David this morning, I was talking to a very close friend of mine I've known for over 30 years. And he works in a high-level job, oil executive, a drilling company, goes all over the world. We were watching the metals prices in real time on Sunday, sitting by a campfire on my land in the Ozarks. And he said, this has never happened before. Like this jump in oil, the prices, the way that it rose and the percentages. We were watching the overseas trading. It's like, Tony, I've been doing this for 25 years. Never happened before. This is completely new territory. All right. This is Kitco.com. Strait of Hormuz closure threatens U.S. bond market as gold eyes 6,000. Now remember that this is talking about the U.S. bond market. Why is that? Why is the Strait of Hormuz closure threatening the U.S. bond market? We're going to jump into that. As the Strait of Hormuz enters its 11th day of closure, the true battleground may not be the Middle East, but within the U.S. Treasury market. The primary threat to the U.S. economic structure is rooted in debt and international dollar reliance rather than kinetic military engagements. Iran doesn't have to beat the U.S. military if it even could, which I doubt. This is Gorman, the guy's commenting on this, is all it has to do is beat the bond market. The core issue stems from the heavy reliance on the U.S. dollar by foreign nations that are concurrently dependent on imported energy, Global investors hold 27 trillion in net dollar-dominated assets. When oil prices spike and the dollar strengthens, foreign entities are forced into a difficult position. They have to have energy. They have to have food. They have to have these commodities, Gorman explained, and so they will sell dollar assets, starting with treasuries, because they're the deepest and most liquid, to essentially buy oil, which is so bizarre because we gave up the petrodollar. I know that we're supposed to have short memories and not remember any of this, but 2024 is the 50th year anniversary, and that was the deadline. We had a 50-year agreement with the House of Saud and OPEC to denominate crude strictly in dollars. That was one of the things when we went off the gold standard. Henry Kissinger, Nixon, they did this deal to have the petrodollar, and that's a lot of conspiracy researchers and alternative journalists and people have said, well, that's why we go over to the Middle East. That's why we have all these wars. Not really, because we didn't even fight to prop it up. We did nothing. We let the agreement lapse with nothing. And I thought, well, that's interesting. It's like the dog that didn't bark. This dynamic creates a cycle where foreign nations effectively use the U.S. bond market to finance their energy deficits, driving yields higher. The current fiscal reality exacerbates this vulnerability. The Congressional Budget Office projects the federal budget deficit in fiscal year 2026 at $1.9 trillion. Further, U.S. Treasury data indicates foreign holdings of U.S. Treasuries sit at an all-time high of roughly $9.4 trillion. U.S. debt to GDP was 31% in 1973, Gorman stated. It is 122% today. It's apples and oranges is what he's saying. Well, that's right. When the last oil embargo, that was like, we're doing it in reverse now. We caused this. The last time was done by OPEC. And our debt to income or debt to GDP was 31%. Now it's 122%. And that's one of the reasons why we won't be able to paper over any of this. Beyond the immediate financial mechanics, the conflict highlights shifting geopolitical realities regarding supply chain security. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical choke point, historically facilitating the transit of approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day, representing over 25% of global seaborne oil trade. Despite the broader market treating the Strait as effectively choked off, reports indicate that specific buyers are still securing shipments. Data shows that China alone receives nearly 38% of all exports transiting the Strait. Furthermore, China has established a massive supply cushion, having emerged as the buyer over 90% of Iran's oil exports. Well, that's right. China, this is a major disruption. Venezuela, and we're going to get to that as well. This has been a major disruption for them, but the prices of everything are going to go up and are going up. Meanwhile, two things are happening. The prices of everything is going up. Supply chains are choking. And then these nations that need to buy oil are going to sell their treasuries. And what happened last week when I reported for the first time, which was not covered by any major outlet. I saw it nowhere. I looked, by the way, but the number one held reserve asset in the world right now is gold. Central banks buying physical gold because of the rise in prices has surpassed dollar holdings. It says, as investors navigate a highly leveraged financial system dealing with energy disruptions, inflation, and shifting global power, physical assets are taking precedence over sovereign paper. With sovereign debt levels at historic highs, gold is increasingly viewed as the ultimate safe haven. All roads lead to gold, in my opinion, Groman concluded. I think it will be over 6,000 by mid-year, if what I'm hearing is right about the Strait of Hormuz. So just a little bit of analysis on one of the fallouts from this. And we saw in 2022 the sanctions that were immediately placed. We already had sanctions on Russia and we had sanctions on Iran. We've been doing this for years and years. But when Russia invaded Ukraine, we immediately placed this is February of 2022. We immediately placed massive sanctions on Russia, and the ruble fell. And I've told this story many times, but you have to follow this logic because something happened. This was around the time that we put the sanctions on Russia. Roughly 56% of all the transactions financially that went on in the world went on in dollars. When we placed the sanctions on Russia and the ruble fell, there was a moment where it looked like, the United States was going to destroy the Russian economy through these sanctions. Then all of a sudden, the ruble started to bounce back. The Russian finance minister said that dollars are no longer acceptable to Russia. They called them candy wrappers, which is like a toilet paper or something in Russian. It's an insult. It means garbage. So we don't want your candy wrappers. And they started going directly and doing deals, not only between nations like China and India and Iran for gold or for oil, and they started going outside of the system using gold. The ruble bounced back, and what happened is that 56% of usage in dollars fell by the next year into the 40s. So it fell like 10%. And it's continued to accelerate. Now we crossed the Rubicon where I didn't think it would be that early, by the way. But because gold rose so high, in conjunction with all the central banks buying physical gold, the price redenominated in dollars has now surpassed the holdings. So we crossed that. So now we're talking about low 40s of dollar usage around the world, which is the whole reason we're able to have this empire. The empire is propped up. The mother's milk of the military industrial complex is fake fiat currency. So we've propped this up, but it has to be used. It's like Tinkerbell. If you don't clap, it dies, right? That's the whole point of having money velocity and having the world's reserve currency and all the rest of that. And the dollar's still king dollar. Doesn't mean tomorrow the dollar is not going to be worth anything. But when you see metrics where, and in one of the terrible ifs, it's never a clean thing, right? War never works out that way. You have to be really humble. There's always a blowback. There's always something unintended. It's like always going to be a twilight zone consequence, especially when you initiate it. Has history ever, and that's one thing I was thinking the other day, and David mentioned today, like the aggressor. Do we have an example of when the aggressor becomes the victor? I'm sure that there is, because mathematics, but is it something in our nature? Lincoln wanted the South to fire on Fort Sumter, and he goaded him into it. Same thing, FDR goaded the Japanese into attacking Pearl Harbor and cutting off their oil supplies, ignoring the fact that we cracked the purple, their code. We knew exactly what they were doing, ignoring all the overtures from their diplomats, ignoring warnings and all that stuff. So he was goaded. Same thing, Winston Churchill sent the ships through the Lusitania, through the channels, the way that they would be most likely to run into a German U-boat. Like all this stuff, like they want to be attacked, especially if there's something about receiving the first blow and then who's the victor after that. It's an interesting question. Now we've initiated this war, and the unintended consequences are perhaps will start in the financial sector because of the rise of the price of oil. It's never as easy as you think it's going to be. I mean, if you see $200 a barrel oil, you realize that like just right behind that is a complete collapse of the economic order that is right now. They will not survive. You things like the first things that'll go are like cheap liquidity and tech and other things. And then the rest of that will be the financial standing. And we've already seen cracks in the system of these private equity funds, whether it's BlackRock or Blackstone and now Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan. They're putting credit freezes, and outflow restrictions on some of these private equities and other things where credit is held. So watch that very carefully. It's not only the blowback of the foreign policy in and of itself, whether you got to worry about, terrorism, or you have to worry about reprisals or whatever. No, there's the hidden costs in here, which might be why they're doing it in the first place. I mean, when you look at how stupid this is, like just sheer stupidity and lack of historical sense and lack of humility. Look at somebody that clearly Pete Hegseth was a Fox News host because he's got the mentality of one, which is right adjacent to a child. Like he just no understanding of how any of this works. And you look at that and you wonder, what's the next shoe to drop? I want to continue on this talking about the Strait of Hormuz. I think it's, I remember talking to my dad about this for years, and that was always, the fallout from an attack on Iran. And then you got to wonder, why in the hell are we attacking? Iran can't project power. And even if it did, it doesn't, they could have gone to war with us a long time ago. It doesn't make any sense unless you want to run it through the lens of the Operation Epstein Fury. We're just literally doing whatever Benjamin Netanyahu says. Is this our history? Is this what we've strove for? Is this why we've got veteran cemeteries packed to the brim with people that believe they were fighting and dying for the U.S. Constitution to get our government hijacked like this? Is this what we're doing? I'm trying to draw a conclusion here other than that. And I'm really trying. I don't even want to be biased and look at it that way, but it's so bizarre, don't you think? And we'll get into a little bit of the consequences of, and just one of them, by the way, on antiwar.com, article from Dave DeCamp I want to get into. Let's go to Activist Post and just talk a little bit more about the Strait of Hormuz. And then I'm going to see how much I can cover. I want to definitely get to the chat today as well. All right, let me put this up on the screen. All right, this is Activist Post. By the way, if you don't, you got to go follow Activist Post. My good friend Charlie Robinson. I'm sponsoring the site over there. You see little wise wolf icons, wolf pack icons. Love what Charlie does, and he's got some great stuff over on Activist Post. Go follow him and his podcast. Let's see. Now that Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz, how high will the price of oil go? This is Michael Schneider, the Economic Collapse blog. The war with Iran that we have been waiting for is officially here. The U.S. and Israel are absolutely pummeling Iran with military targets, and in return, the Iranians are striking targets all over the Middle East. Yeah, by the way, Dubai is not looking great for Dubai, which is so sad. I was also talking to my friend who's an oil executive who travels all over the world. He's like, a week ago, you could be an American, travel just about anywhere in the Middle East, and not anymore. So thank you, Trump administration. Thank you, Pete, for that. As you will see below, even a British military base in Cyprus has just been hit. I think that the Iranians were hoping that the unexpected nations that they are targeting would also be traumatized, so they would beg the United States to stop the conflict. But instead, it seems like almost everyone is uniting against Iran. Well, Michael Schneider is interesting. I don't know that that's the case. I definitely think that people are wondering why there is a war. There is a growing consensus that there is no way that the regime in Iran can remain in place after this, and that it means that this war could go on for an extended period of time. Needless to say, this is going to be good news, not going to be good news for the global economy at all. Our entire way of life depends on cheap energy, or nearly a third of all oil travels by sea must go through the Strait of Hormuz. Positioned between Oman and Iran, the strait serves as a critical transit route and a potential choke point for global crude, with about 13 million barrels a day moving through. In 2025, approximately 31% of all seaborne oil flows through it. Everyone agrees that a closure of the Strait of Hormuz would be a really big deal. Unfortunately, it appears that the Iranians have already decided to pull the trigger. It is reported that the IRGC is warning vessels that the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. A European Union naval mission official told Reuters that vessels in the region are receiving marine radio warnings from Iran's Revolutionary Guard instructing ships not to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The first attack against a ship in the Strait of Hormuz occurred on Sunday morning. Oman's Maritime Security Center announced that the oil tanker named Skylight, flying the flag of the Republic of Palau, was targeted around 5 nautical miles north of Qasab port. In a statement shared on X, Oman authorities confirmed that there were 20 crew members on board, including 15 holding Indian nationality and 5 of Iranian nationality. They were all evacuated. I just want to say, too, that even if there isn't a complete closure, just the fragility of the system itself, and you have to ask yourself, there's no way we didn't know that this would be one of the consequences. Are we? I need to make sure that I'm not anywhere attached to this karmically or spiritually. The current regime, did they see this coming? Are they stupid? Are they weapons grade stupid? Are they acting? These are the questions. None of these questions are good, by the way. Like, it's not like, how did you get so smart? How did you see that coming? Right? They are that stupid and that dangerous. I don't think that we're going to see much oil get through the Strait of Hormuz for the foreseeable future. As a result, the price of oil is likely to go much higher. Michael Schneider says, as I write this article, it has smashed through the $70 barrel. Well, he wrote this like last week, right? And by the way, it was 120 on Sunday evening, talking to my friend. A former White House energy advisor named Bob McNally is warning that if the Strait of Hormuz is closed for an extended period of time, it will mean guaranteed global recession. Well, you don't say so, Bob. More than 14 million barrels per day flowed through the Strait in 2025. A prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a guaranteed global recession. I believe he's correct. The Iranians have large numbers of anti-ship missile launchers dug deep into the cliffs that overlook the strait. I'm not sure there will be an easy way to take out those launchers. No, but just even the mere threat of them. And you got to remember, like, they've been planning for this for a long time. All they have to do you realize, like, boots on the ground, which is what you can't do a war from the air. Eventually, if you want to overthrow the political system or do something akin to that, if you want to truly control it, you have to do boots on the ground. And I know that the neocon Luciferian fantasy, I'm sure they all talk about it at their Eyes Wide Shut parties, is that you have to, you can do it from the air, and then everyone will there will be an Iranian Thomas Jefferson, and we'll all have freedom, and we can start the transgender surgeries immediately. Whatever the hell these idiots think. And I probably give them too much credit, like they actually think this stuff through. I think they feel. I think Trotskyites and neocons just feel. I don't think that but they definitely don't, like, if you're Ben Shapiro, you don't feel your eyebrows growing into your forehead. Maybe they don't feel that. If the price of oil rises above $100 a barrel, there will be a real problem. Unfortunately, some analysts are convinced this is precisely what could happen. Should Iran succeeding at closing the strait, the implications for global oil markets could be severe. This could present a scenario 3 times the severity of the Arab oil embargo and Iranian revolution in the 1970s and drive oil prices into the triple digits. If access through the strait is limited for an extended period, prices could materially go above 100. Well, it already is. It already is. Sunday night trading in the foreign markets, 120 a barrel. It's come down. And I talked to David Knight about this, and there is some sort of like, the Wall Street government treasury axis where they're doing a plunge protection deal or something. And they've done this before, but it's not enough. In the 1970s, we went off the gold standard in 1971. It was $35 an ounce. By the end of the 1970s, it was $600, and then to 1980, $800 an ounce for an ounce of gold. And they stepped in and they did a great deal of manipulation with markets and credits and the money supply. You got to remember the U.S. debt in 1980 was $1 trillion. It took us from 1776 to 1979 to go $1 trillion into debt. We do that every 90 days now. So yeah, they did a great job, even for decades, to suppress the price of gold and silver to show that, the dollar has still got strength and all the rest of that. And they're going to do the same thing with oil, but it just won't work that way. Maybe short term, but they won't be able to control it for a complete economic cycle or a quarter. President Donald Trump launched Saturday's wide-ranging attack on Iran weeks after a long lobbying effort by an unusual pair of U.S. allies in the Middle East, Israel and Saudi Arabia. Well, if you know anything about the Sabbatean Frankist line, if you've read any David Icke, then you know that Israel and Saudi Arabia are pretty much the same people. It's kind of the same club. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made multiple private phone calls to Trump over the past month. Yeah, if you notice, there weren't any Iranians on or Iraqis on 9/11, but there were Saudis, and there were some dancing Israelis. Huh, who knew? The combined effort to help Trump lead it to order a massive aerial campaign against Iran's leadership and military. Yeah, and I want to talk about one of the consequences of that here in a minute. The Saudis know that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is just temporary, but their problems with Iran have been going on for a very long time. Saudi Arabia is a global epicenter of Sunni Islam, and Iran is the global epicenter of Shia Islam. The Saudis are convinced that Sunni Islam will someday dominate the entire world, and the Iranians are convinced that Shia Islam will someday dominate the entire world. Most people living in the Western world do not realize this. Well, I do somewhat. And I also think that these differences are exacerbated or they are made more stark by outside influence. And it does not, you talk about the proxy wars and things that we fight in Yemen on behalf of the House of Saud. These are energy. These are about energy, and this is about flow, and this is about economic dominance of the region. It's not necessarily about Sunni versus Shia, although that does exist. I think what you have to run the risk of doing is uniting the entire Islamic world. It's again, like you used to be able to travel. Their time had taken care of a lot of what had happened post 9/11. But now we're just setting everything back to zero for Americans or any of the West. Does Iran actually want to draw as many countries into this war as possible? Says it kind of seems like that's their goal. Interestingly, multiple rockets were fired into Israel from southern Lebanon just a little while ago. Many are suggesting this means that Hezbollah has joined the war. Well, if we want them to, they will. In response, the IDF is now conducting airstrikes in Lebanon. We were warned that a conflict with Iran could become a major regional war, and it appears this is now becoming a reality. So buckle up, hold on tight, because I think we are just in the early moments of a really wild ride. So says Michael Snyder. Well, I don't disagree with him. I think that the powers that be, the planners, see this as an opportunity to do some real damage to the world structure. And if you are listening to, commentators, and I certainly want to get people's opinion, I'm fascinated by the degree, the the variety of opinions on all of it. But when I step back for a minute, you just have to ask, if you didn't have to do this thing, so why are we doing it? This seems like it's been prepped for a long time as well. Like they use the ruse of which is something I think is going to have devastating consequences. You got to weigh everything in the balance here. It's not just the fact that he hit these targets and took out the Ayatollah and all this stuff. What are the other the U.S. diplomacy is taking a major blow. Like U.S. just our ability to negotiate in good faith. Not that we had that great reputation to begin with, but literally we are just sending these signals. We do not honor our word. We do not seek peace. We do not seek a negotiation. I'd always wondered that why, I read histories of, this Cold War and foreign policy and been looking at stuff like that for years and years. And that used to be a big part of the role that we played. You go back to Teddy Roosevelt negotiated the end to the Russian and Japanese War at the beginning of the 20th century and got a Nobel Prize for it. Not that, Albert Nobel invented dynamite and he was trying to clear his conscience. So he created this peace prize because his invention blew a lot of people up. But that used to be kind of a centerpiece of what we did. And some of them were lies, yeah, but then some of them were meant to buy time. But then you had, like the agreement that Khrushchev had with Kennedy on the upper atmospheric testing ban on nuclear weapons, or Nixon had the SALT Treaty, which was the strategic arms limitation agreement with Brezhnev. And, they had it's unofficial, but it's kind of a détente, right? This was like a coexistence with the Soviet. We had all these agreements. Reagan had Reykjavik and, with Gorbachev, so had all these. We stopped doing all that stuff. And we're just phoning it in. And now we do it just so we can get, faster for Daddy Israel or whatever, whoever the Trump administration is working for, clearly, right? This isn't even political. We don't have to do this, so why do it, right? Why risk this? If the risk factor alone, does this administration not see itself like even, being around at the end of the cycle? Like, are they just doing this? I mean, think about it. Like, what is the upside here? You had to have known that this is going to be an ongoing thing with the price of oil. And you talk about the cascading level of fear with other countries. Then they start dumping treasuries, the whole thing that holds up our entire economy so they can buy oil. Well, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here. I definitely won't be a cheerleader. So I'm sorry if you just found the show. I'm definitely not Fox News, and I'm not going to give you sunshine and rainbows over it. All right, let's go to the chat, and then I got so much I want to cover today. All right, let's do the chat first, and I'm going to go to Rumble. I've neglected Rumble for so long, but I appreciate you guys over there. Let's see. Let's go back. One Big Blue. Thanks. This is good afternoon, Tony. Good to see you. Brandon Bennett over in the chat, over on Rumble, the America Unplugged channel over on Rumble, guys. Do not obey says Trump is owned. Yeah, I mean, can you what argument could you make against that at this point? Brandon Bennett says, Miss Lindsay, yeah, sipping wine. They're going to kill us all. And just an evil human being. And we get the people we deserve in this country, folks. I mean, I'm sorry. Is this like God smiling? Like the people of South Carolina are like, oh, well, we're good Christian folk and we put Jesus first. But also, this secular nation state in the Middle East needs to bomb as many brown people as possible. I'm sure that's exactly what Jesus wanted. I mean, y'all are nuts. And then you get Lindsey Graham, and God's like, okay, here's Lindsey Graham. Sure, he'll help you carry out all of your Christian values. One big blue says, Shapiro's eyebrows grow larger with every lie he tells. Yeah, they're going to be like this, man. They're going to be like, it's just going to cover his entire forehead. Can you imagine? Like, there are fates worse than death. Imagine just having to be Ben Shapiro. Like, you don't have the courage or the balls to fight a war yourself, but you like sacrificing, sending other people's kids to die for lies. But you just know that you're going to run out of other people's kids. Like, you're going to run, and people are going to turn on this. It's not going to last forever, Ben. It's just people are going to turn, and they're not going to accept these wars in the future. And yeah, we voted in, by the way, twice to end the wars. We didn't get it. I think people are really going to learn this time, though. I think there's going to be a huge fallout from this. Like the peace dividend that we were promised and didn't get, and people are pissed. Let's see, and I go to YouTube. Appreciate everybody over there. Let's see, NMQHM. Thanks. I just watched you on David Knight. Well, thanks for watching me over there. I love talking to David. Pistol Pete is like a Far Cry villain. I don't know that, but he's definitely crying. And he's a far cry from a man. 112 Domain says, this podcast is grossly underappreciated. Oh, thank you. I got so much stuff planned for this show. If you're going to follow me, by the way, go to where podcasts are found and follow the Paratruther podcast if you can, and leave us a review. I didn't see any new reviews, but if you'll give me a review on Apple, even if it's negative, just give me 5 stars. And if you can write, I'll read it on there. You can write whatever you want, and I'll read it on there. But the algorithm certainly hides us. But Paratruther's got some. I'm doing an episode about Iran. We took a few more days, Mr. Anderson and I, to go over some notes before we record it. But we're going to drop one at least every couple of weeks. So go over there and check out Paratruther. Anywhere podcasts are found. Pistol Pete is a Cub Scout playing Army man. Lindsey Graham's parents gave him a girl's name because they knew one day he grew up to be a cheerleader. That's pretty good. Oh, there's got to be some big reveal on what he actually was. Hi, Tony and Bean. Stuck in Israel 2.0 in Jersey. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot here to unpack, folks. I'm glad you're my support group and that you're with me. Also want to shout out to the folks over on WWCR, Worldwide Christian Radio. Thanks for that's what makes this a true radio transmission still. I used to do it 5 days a week. But I don't know if I can cover this news 5 days a week, folks. I don't know if that would be good for me. All right, let's see how much time we have left. Oh, there's so much to get to. Real quick, just throw this up because this is one of the first casualty of war is the truth. I want to throw this up. Just antiwar.com. I started, and I have no affiliation with them, but I think they're a really good outlet to donate to. So I started donating to antiwar.com because I think they'll probably be one of the first sites to get attacked. They have such good journalism over there. So I started doing, I would, if you can, throw them $5 or something. I think this is going to become even more, so much of the state-owned media and, like it's about 80 or 90% of all television and radio is owned by the same 3 corporations now. And they're very much pro-war. So you have to go outside of the source to get some good information. It says U.S. responsible for bombing Iranian elementary school and massacring over 100 children. according to the preliminary investigation. The U.S. is responsible for bombing an elementary school in Minab, southern Iran, during the opening hours of the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran on February 28th. It massacred 175 people, the vast majority being young schoolgirls and schoolboys, according to a preliminary U.S. military investigation. You know, both Trump and Pistol Pete, they were both saying this is, it could be Iranians that did it to themselves. And they had still investigated. They both knew. People briefed on the investigation told the New York Times that it appeared the U.S. Central Command had created target coordinates for the strike using outdated information from the Defense Intelligence Agency. Wow. Yeah. Nothing like being lazy, too. Like you're fighting a war you don't have to, and you just see people as collateral damage, you know. The school building was previously part of a nearby Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but was separated and turned into a school something between 2013 and 2016, meaning the U.S. military may have used information that was over a decade old. The U.S. military has been using artificial intelligence to help with targeting, but the Times report said it appeared the strike on the school was likely the result of human error. Well, yeah, it's called laziness, folks. That's what happens when you fight a war you don't have to. And, you know, I mean, call me crazy, but if we declared war on sex traffickers and pedos and corrupt politicians and people who harm children, I'd be all in on that. I'd volunteer. They could draft my ass. I'm fine with it. I'd do that war. But this is not what that is. Okay. Like you have to separate yourself from this thing karmically, spiritually. Do whatever you got to do. You stay 1,000 miles away. Don't justify it in your head. It's bad. And, you know, the Iraq war was real bad. And it created a lot of monsters. But I think this is worse. I honestly do. I think this is worse. And we don't even know what the fallout from this is going to be. Again, the terrible ifs accumulate. You start putting pressure on other nations, how they buy and supply energy, and then the people in those nations have harder times. The opinion changes very quickly. And then you're talking about economic consequences for those nations, and that leads to war. That leads to hostility. That leads to desperation. You know, Gerald Celente said that. It's very smart. When people lose everything, they lose it. When they've lost everything, they lose it. Yeah, this may be the most catastrophic foreign policy decision in American history, especially if Lindsey Graham gets his wet dream and we have boots on the ground. That will be. That may signal the end of the American empire. It will be that bad. All right. Let's see. We've got about 12 minutes. Let's see if I can cover this real quick. I'll see if I can get to it. This is the thing about doing the Arterburn radio transmission. We don't have an ounce of fat on this show. I hope you enjoy it. Let me stop the screen, put this on. This is natural news. Saw this come up, and I think it piqued my interest because we're seeing a lot of stuff with tick-borne illnesses I've covered on the show. But declassified evidence links U.S. bioweapons program to Lyme disease. Again, natural news. Kevin News. Explosive evidence suggests Lyme disease may have originated from U.S. military bioweapons experiments in the 1960s, including deliberate releases of infected ticks as part of covert operations. Declassified documents reveal the CIA dropped pathogen-infected ticks on Cuban sugarcane workers in 1962 under Operation Mongoose, with plans to incapacitate workers using biological weapons. In 1966 and 69, the U.S. military released 280,800 radioactive ticks in Virginia, coinciding with the sudden spread of tick-borne diseases like Lyme, Rocky Mountain spotted fever in the Northeast. The Plum Island, remember Plum Island, Animal Disease Center, managed by the Army Chemical Corps, bred hundreds of thousands of ticks for biowarfare research. Lyme disease first emerged in Connecticut, just 13 miles from Plum Island. Well, that's got to be a coincidence. Key research, including Willy Berghoff's discovery of a second Lyme-related pathogen, the Swiss agent, was suppressed. In 2019, Congress demanded an investigation into whether Lyme disease was accidentally or intentionally released by military bioweapons programs. Explosive evidence suggests that the Lyme disease, a deliberate tick-borne illness affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans annually, may have originated from a secret U.S. military weapons program in the 1960s. It says Dr. Malone, Robert Malone, a pioneering biochemist and mRNA technology, has uncovered declassified documents, eyewitness testimony, and suppressed research pointing to a deliberate release of infected ticks by U.S. intelligence agencies as part of a Cold War operation. Well, I can't get into every single thing on this article, but I wanted to remind you that this has obviously been well researched, and we've covered this, and I've talked about it on Paratruther and past shows for many times. But you've also seen like folks that are related to the World Economic Forum and others who have come out and said, well, if we could just get more tick-borne illnesses like alpha-gal and other things that gives you allergic reactions to eating meat, and we just put them into the population. Like if we could just work on infecting people with that. That is a real thing, by the way. They've come out and said that. And you probably guessed it, the way that these, I guess they're males, but the way that the professors look, they have that look, you know. It's kind of like the same kind of people who take you to war. They got that look. I've seen that look before. And it says, between 1966 and 69, the U.S. military conducted domestic experiments releasing 282,800 Lone Star ticks tagged with radioactive carbon-14 across Virginia bird migration routes. The radioactive markers allowed scientists to track their spread using Geiger counters. Tick experts consulted about how the experiments were aghast with one remark, you'd never be able to do that now. Well, yes, you would. You would just dress it up as something else. Remember, they do that with mosquitoes. Bill Gates, who, wanted to slip his ex-wife some antibiotics, he wants you to take your medicine too. He'll like to give you a vaccine, and if not, you can get bitten by one of his genetically modified mosquitoes. These people are sick. It's funny, like I would think about if I had access to any sort of power, I would think like, how do we get the air and water cleaner? How do I do some good? How do we have more home gardens and things like that? How do we get some more farmers markets? How do we clean up these highways and byways? No, this is what psychopaths do. Like, let's get some ticks and get them radioactive and just kind of see where it goes. Or Plum Island, Plum Island Animal Disease Center, just 13 miles from Lyme, Connecticut, was managed by the Army Chemical Corps from 1952 to 1969 for biowarfare research. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Despite official denials, Newsday uncovered classified documents in 1993 proving biowarfare research occurred at Plum Island. And Malone's investigation reveals a pattern of institutional secrecy spanning decades. Well, I highly recommend you look into this yourself. It's one of those things where it got away from them, or maybe it's on purpose. And I think maybe the next shoe to drop in this, you're hearing this here, if you want to hear part of the parapolitics side and a little bit of the conspiracy side. They love that. I mean, the powers that be, the little backbiters, Satan's little helpers, they like that alpha-gal stuff. And they definitely love bioweapons. It's their favorite. Now let's talk about, as we close out, I didn't even plug today, by the way. Let's go to, this was the New American. And this is fun. This is as of today. I'll put this up on the screen. Just something to talk about. New American. Leaked Bohemian Grove membership list ignites online backlash. A leaked membership list from the secretive Bohemian Grove has stirred public interest. It originated from independent journalist Daniel Buchslaw, who obtained a 2023 attendance roster through persistent outreach to a Bay Area club member. Published on his Substack on February 25th, the list includes more than 2,200 names. It's been confirmed as authentic by a club insider, according to the San Francisco Standard. Buchslaw's post included a downloadable PDF sparking widespread media coverage, including a New York Post article highlighting the who's who of the celebrity elite. Notable figures on the list include comedian Conan O'Brien, musician Jimmy Buffett, billionaire Michael Bloomberg, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, venture capitalist Paul Pelosi. Oh, wow. No kidding. Industrialist Charles Koch, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Actor Clint Eastwood, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and former Secretary of State James A. Baker. Some enthusiasts shared a detailed breakdown categorizing names by politics, business, and technology, emphasizing alleged ties to power structures. Well, I just wanted to share this really quick before we closed out, and it goes on to talk about the history of the club. But, they have the same kind of, they'll normalize it a bit by some of the celebrities or people, notables that you understand are on the list that go to Bohemian Grove. But it's just like the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR had, I think Angelina Jolie's a member of the CFR, and so was Paul Newman, and, Council on Foreign Relations. Like, they dress it up, and these are in the periphery, but remember what it is, right? This is, it's a throwback, and what was uncovered in the Epstein files and other things like these, the elite, regardless of the intent of everybody. Nixon went to Bohemian, and you know what he said about it? He said, and this is a direct quote from Richard Nixon, who went to Bohemian Grove. He said it was the faggiest GD thing he'd ever seen. I don't want to say that. It was the faggiest GD thing he'd ever seen. And that's saying a lot. He was in politics for many years. And probably saw some crazy stuff. Bohemian Grove, it says, is a private retreat founded by members of the Bohemian Club, which began in San Francisco in 1872. By the way, Jack London went to this. And intended for a haven for artists, writers, and journalists. One of its founding members was famed author Ambrose Bierce. Mark Twain was an early associate. And again, it mentions Jack London. The Grove is a rustic campground covering 2,700 acres in Monterey, California, owned by the Bohemian Club since 1878. Over the years, the club evolved to include influential figures from politics, business, and technology. Each July, it hosts a 2-week event featuring theatrical performance, lectures, and formal gatherings, drawing around 2,500 attendees, divided into themed camps like Los Angeles or Mandalay. The event's signature ritual, the cremation of care, involves a dramatic ceremony before a 40-foot concrete owl statue symbolizing the shedding of worldly concerns, often depicted in leaked footage as hooded figures around a bonfire. So they're definitely carrying something out. And remember, the voice of the owl was supposed to be, the voice of the owl was Walter Cronkite. And the owl is supposed to represent Moloch, right? So same god as the Canaanites and the Phoenicians and those who do child sacrifice. So you draw your own conclusions, ladies and gents. I'll be back next week. America Unplugged on Saturday. I'll be there with Billy Ray Valentine, the legendary Donald Jeffries, Wolfpack.gold. Get some precious metal subscriptions going to you, because the dollar, I don't know if you listen to the rest of the show, doesn't look great. Perhaps maybe a little bit of hedging your bets against that. Wolfpack.gold. Tony.gold is my personal website. Paratruther. Go and follow it. New episode coming out on maybe Sunday evening, early Monday. All right, on Iran. So stay tuned for that. You guys take care of each other. End of transmission.